Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches. Today I'm going to be talking about the 1932 film Mistress of Atlantis. The movie begins with two soldiers from the French Foreign Legion who have been sent on a mission to survey an ancient road in the Sahara Desert. The pair expect a long, lonely assignment. What they find instead is Atlantis. It seems that despite what ancient myth would have us believe, that fabled civilization never sank below the ocean waves and has instead lain hidden in the depths of the Sahara for thousands of years. The Atlanteans promptly capture the two men and then separate them. Now, the Legionnaire who is serving as the film's protagonist and narrator is introduced to two further guests, quote unquote, of the Atlanteans, a decidedly quirky Russian and a morose Swede. Both of these men talk in glowing terms of Antonia, the queen of the city, and when our hero, again to use a loose word, is summoned into her presence, the Swede is so upset by what he takes as a sign of favour to the newcomer that he instigates a fight. After that is resolved, the soldier is taken to Queen Antonia. The Queen doesn't answer any of his questions about his missing friend, but she does offer him a deal. If he beats her in a game of chess, she'll let him go free. He eagerly accepts this offer. I mean, why wouldn't he? He doesn't seem to have anything to lose. But the Queen soundly trounces him. She kind of has to, or the movie would be over. The soldier returns from his meeting as smitten by the Queen as the Swede was. So smitten, in fact, that when he learns the Swede has committed suicide, he doesn't stop to consider that this sort of obsession might be more than a little unhealthy. Now, this film was the second screen adaptation of Pierre Benoit's 1919 novel L'Atlantide. While the previous adaptation was a silent film, this one was a talkie and was, in fact, produced and filmed from start to finish in three different languages, French, German, and English. So this wasn't a case of filming it once and dubbing it. This is a case of filming the whole film three times. Quite a common practice back in the day. Now, there have been multiple other adaptations of the novel in the 9 decades since this version emerged, most of which were French productions or co-productions, the most recent in 1992. The US film industry did also produce their own version in the late 1940s, ironically at a time when Benoit's work was thoroughly out of favour in his homeland. More on that later. That one US adaptation was Siren Atlantis, which was optioned for production in 1946, but took 3 years to be filmed and reach cinemas. It was a significant financial flop, though it has apparently gone on to find some acclaim as a camp classic, a reputation that makes me think it would at least be a bit more entertaining than this movie. But before we dig into this movie, let's talk a little bit more about the novel L'Atlantide, the man who wrote it, and why he was out of favour in France in the late 1940s. So the book was very successful on release in its native France, winning the Grand Prize for Literature from the Académie Française. It did, however, run into some issues when it was translated in English, with one reviewer alleging that Benoit had plagiarised the plot from H. Rider Haggard's novel She. Benoit denied the accusation and sued for libel, but ultimately lost the case due to certain resemblances between the works and the court's interpretation of libel. Now, I'm dubious that Benoit actually did plagiarise from She myself, though the question cannot be proved for certain one way or the other. Alas, what is certain is that during World War II, Benoit was a member of the pro-Nazi group Collaboration, which led to a brief period of imprisonment after France was liberated, and his works were also blacklisted for several years as a result. Though the US film Siren of Atlantis did make it to French theatres, and ironically it was one of the few places where it was successful. Now, Benoit appears to have never rescinded his right-wing views. He attempted to resign from the Académie Française in 1959 when they refused to admit an avowed racist and anti-Semite who had also collaborated with the Nazis. Didn't seem to change his mind. Now, some people might argue we should separate the author from their work and that Benoit's political views aren't relevant to the quality of this film. But I'm not one of those people. I wasn't aware of Benoit's politics when I saw this movie, but I am now, and for me, it's relevant information for anyone considering should they watch this film. It's certainly a black mark against the movie for me. Also a black mark for me is the film's pacing. Having set up its scenario of the Legionnaire in Atlantean custody, lusting unrequitedly for Queen Antonia, it then seems in no real hurry to do anything with that. Instead, the film progresses in a dreamy, unfocused fashion with some rather random-seeming diversions. Perhaps the intent is to provoke a sense of otherworldliness to proceedings, or to suggest the whole thing as a dream or hallucination brought on by the man's extensive time alone in the desert. I mean, it could be. But whatever the intent, for me, the outcome was that I spent the whole runtime of the film waiting for something to happen, which made the film feel much longer than its actual length. The version I saw was a scant 77 minutes, though apparently the official runtime is a full hour and a half, suggesting that some material was cut from the version I saw. Also, I think working to the film's disadvantage is the choice to structure most of the narrative as a flashback within a framing story. If you begin any story by announcing its destination, like we know this character survived, we know they got away, we know this happened, if you do that, you need to make the journey to that destination be very, very interesting and engaging on its own terms, and I did not find that to be the case here. Which was a disappointment because the film had some big names working on it. Most notably, these included the director, G.W. Pabst, and the leading lady, Bridget Helm. Both rose to fame in the silent era, which had only really ended in 1929 when talkies finally and decisively came to dominate cinema. Helm's most enduring claim to fame is Fritz Lang's iconic silent film Metropolis, in which she played the dual roles of Maria and the Maschinenmensch. Although one of the biggest stars of the cinema industry in Weimar, Germany, which was at the time second only to Hollywood in size and fame, Helm actually abandoned the film industry entirely when her contract expired in 1935. She emigrated to Switzerland and avoided any further involvement with cinema. Pabst, meanwhile, cemented his reputation in the very early 30s, but I know him for his 1929 silent film Pandora's Box. I posted a video about that film nearly 2 years ago, in which I praised it for its quite modern attitudes towards its themes and its cinematic techniques. And we see glimmers of that modernity in this film as well. Mistress of Atlantis features the use of close-ups and other shot selections that were still uncommon in this era. But ultimately, those modern touches aren't enough to inject the film with the verve that I think it misses. I do wonder if the decision to make the film in 3 different languages contributed to this. While Bridget Helm was sufficiently fluent in French and English to play the role of Antonia in all 3 versions of the movie, the rest of the cast was extensively rotated, meaning she played all of her scenes 3 different times in 3 different languages with 3 different sets of actors. Perhaps the lethargy of the film was simply sheer exhaustion. I think you can safely leave Mistress of Atlantis undiscovered in the desert. Next time, do you have a taste for Gothic cheese? Because if so, the 1965 offering Nightmare Castle, also known under a bunch of other titles, including the gloriously on-brand Lovers Beyond the Grave, is a film that has you covered. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've seen today's movie, let me know what you thought of it.